Today I want to help you understand, how does a lease option to purchase work? So how does a lease option to purchase actually work? So by the end of this video, you'll have a clear understanding to how the steps of a lease option to purchase actually work and what steps are involved to set up this agreement. You'll understand its financial implications and how to navigate the complexities of a lease option agreement. So why is this strategy so appealing for tenants as well as property owners? And how does this arrangement help buyers who aren't necessarily ready to purchase right now? I'll answer these questions by first explaining how a lease option works for the buyer. But I also think it's important, if you are the buyer, to understand how it works from the seller's side so you can be better equipped with knowledge and negotiating tactics. And finally, how you can safeguard yourself with a lease option to purchase. If you're ready to dive in, let's go. So if you are out there looking to buy a home, how does a lease option benefit you as a buyer? Well, it does a couple things. Number one, it allows you to lock in the price of a home that you can test drive. A lease option is also called a rent to own. So you can lock in the price from day one that you know that you're going to purchase the price at either 12 months or 24 or 36 months down the road. That price is locked in and you can test drive that home by living there during that duration of time. When you're test driving the home, if something major were to come up, that gives you the opportunity to then not purchase the home and back out. Now, there is some money involved. When you have a lease option in place, there's an option price you pay to be able to buy that home at a certain date in the future. And that's typically anywhere between 2 to 7% of the purchase price. But I'll talk about how we can make that work for your benefit. But being in the home early and living there before you actually buy it, you can see if the neighborhood's exactly what you wanted, you can see if the home's exactly what you wanted, and that there's no major issues with either of those. It's also a great strategy for those individuals who need some time to get their finances in order to be able to qualify for a traditional loan. So you can actually live in the home that you want to live in. So let's say that you're looking to buy a home, but the bank says you don't have enough history, you're a business owner or you're self-employed, and so what you're showing me as far as income doesn't qualify you to buy a home. I've been in that situation myself as a business owner, so I know what it's like. But if you could go to somebody and say, listen, I'll buy the home from you, I just can't close on it for 12 months from now, so let's engage in a lease option. That is a great strategy. It allows you to get into the home you want to buy, because your other alternative is just to rent somewhere, an apartment, a condo, a townhome, and then after your lease is up or your lease is almost up, start looking for a home to live in. Whereas you could be living in the home you want right now with a lease option and close on it down the road, 12 months or 24 months, and you know the purchase price right from the get-go. Another cool thing about lease options as a buyer is you can negotiate your monthly rent price to take a certain percentage of that monthly rent and count it towards your down payment. So if you're paying $2,000 a month for rent and you say, I want $200 of this to every single month to be taken out and counted towards my down payment, that is another key component of a lease option. And if you did that over 2 years, $200 a month times 24 is $4,800 that you've accumulated over 2 years to put towards your down payment, plus the option price is also counted towards the down payment. So there's so many beneficial components as a buyer. Now, we understand why it's beneficial for the buyer, but let's go in with a seller's mindset to be able to understand what they're thinking so you can know how to really put things in place to benefit you as the buyer in this scenario. And I've said this before, but I love lease options because it seems to solve a problem that benefits both parties. And here's how it benefits the seller so you can understand their mindset. From the seller's standpoint, it allows them to get their home under contract right now at a price that they know they're going to be able to execute on. Plus they have somebody living in the home who is paying their mortgage and all of their expenses. Plus they get some money up front of an option price. Now here's the thing about the option price from the seller side. When they receive that option money, which gives you the buyer the option to buy this home at a certain price at a certain date in the future, once you give them that option money, you will never get that money back if you don't execute on the home. Now if you do execute, that counts towards your down payment. But if you don't execute, then you do not get that money back. So there's a potential downside as a buyer, but I'll talk about how we can mitigate that. So now let's run through on how this would work in a scenario, but understanding both sides so you can really safeguard yourself as the buyer in a lease option scenario. So number one way to safeguard you as a buyer is the price of the home. Anytime you're buying a home, you obviously want to negotiate the price of that home as low as you can. Now understand this, when it comes to lease options, let's say that somebody has a home on the market for $300,000 and it's been on the market for maybe a half of a year and they maybe drop the price a little bit, and you go into them with a solution of a lease option where you'll buy it from them 12 months or 24 months down the road at a certain price. Now they might be thinking in their mind that, well, I've got it listed for $300,000, and if you're not going to buy it from me until 24 months down the road, I think it's going to appreciate. We've got to put that option price at $315,000. Obviously, that is all part of the negotiating process that you need to be acutely aware of, that you can get it as low as you can. And you might be able to say, listen, you've had it on the market, you've had to lower it many times. You might have to lower it again if you're going to sell it right now. I'm willing to pay you $295,000 2 years down the road, really close to your asking price right now, but I'm not going to pay more than that, right? So negotiating the purchase price is a really important piece to this to safeguard you as the buyer. Now, as I mentioned, when you enter into a lease agreement with somebody, there is an option price. You have to pay a certain percentage in order to lock in this home at this price to execute 2, 3, 1 year down the road, right? Now that typically is between 2 to 7% of the purchase price of the home is what the option price costs, right? So if we're looking at a $300,000 home, on the low end, 2% is $6,000. On the high end, 7% is $21,000. Now that is counted towards your down payment, but there is nothing that says it has to be between 2 and 7%. It could be less than that. If you're trying to lock in a home for $300,000, you could potentially pay an option price of $3,000 or 1%. So getting that as low as you can is also important, because if you found some major problems with the neighborhood or with the home itself and you needed to leave that scenario and get out of it and not execute the home, or if your job took you somewhere else and you couldn't buy the home, then that allows you to not lose near as much money as you would if you put, say, $21,000 down. That's a hard pill to swallow if you come 2 years down the road and you're not able to execute on buying the home. So negotiating that option price as low as you can is also vital to benefit you and safeguard you as the buyer. Now, obviously, another important component to safeguard you as a buyer is the term length. It could be 12 months, it could be 24 months, it could be 36 months, but it doesn't have to be equal, right? It could be a 14-month lease, it could be a 20-month lease. I mean, you can set it up however you want. You know your situation better than anybody else. So if you know that it's going to take you 12 months to get that type of income to show the bank that you can purchase that home, you might want to set the lease term up for 16 months. That gives you a little bit of leeway just in case you run into any problems. And when you're dealing with banks, it always seems to take a little bit longer than possible. So setting up your lease with enough time to be able to execute is also equally important to safeguard you as a buyer. Next thing to safeguard you as a buyer, you can negotiate the monthly payment of how much that monthly payment will go towards your down payment. Anytime you do a lease option agreement, there is a portion of that payment every single month that can be counted towards your down payment at the end of the lease term. And the higher you get that, the better off you are. So let's say that you're paying $2,500 a month and you've negotiated $250 a month to go towards your down payment, or they suggested that to you. Even if you up that by $50 a month, $50 a month at the end of 24 months is going to be an additional $1,200 that you can utilize towards your down payment. So increasing the amount of the monthly payment that will go towards your down payment is also a crucial way to safeguard you as a home buyer. And finally, making sure that all of this is detailed out in the agreement. I would recommend having an attorney, even paying them their hourly rate for 1 hour, 2 hours to look this over, to give it the seal of approval, to make sure everything that you want in there is perfect. That is definitely worth your time. They're going to see things. They're fighting for you on your behalf. And so I would highly recommend that. But if you can go into a lease option as a buyer, knowing that you've got the best price possible in the purchase price, the lowest amount that you're paying out through the option price, the most amount of the monthly payment going towards your down payment, and a lease period that benefits you, you're going to be in a great situation. And this is what I've seen that works really well if you're a buyer in a lease option scenario. But I'd be interested in what you've seen. What do you like? Please comment below. Let's engage in a dialogue. And as always, I've got a free gift for you just for stopping by watching the video. It's aaronsfreetraining.com. No obligation. It is a short-term rental calculator and it's 100% free. You put in the price of the home, the income, the expenses, and it'll actually do all the work for you, spitting out to you whether it's a good deal or not, and it's 100% free. Once again, I appreciate you stopping by. Have an amazing day.